Okay guys, I want to do a quick video here on the blast furnace. Now, the blast furnace is used for, it produces pig iron. Okay, now what the hell is pig iron? Okay, well basically pig iron is the first step towards making steel. Now, pig iron itself is, okay, so pig iron has 4% roughly carbon. So it is very brittle and is useless really. Okay, pretty useless anyway. Okay, so when iron ore comes out of the ground, and we might as well write this down. Okay, so iron ore is iron mixed with dirt and rock. Okay, and the blast furnace separates, okay, the iron from the dirt. Right, so that's kind of the background to it. Okay, so it's going to it's the first step for getting iron to make steel then afterwards. So what we're going to do there now is we're going to draw the blast furnace, and I'm going to take the most of the rest of the page because let's just fill one page here. So I'm going to draw the most of the rest of the page on this. So we're going to go down here about 3/4 of the way down, and I'm going to just draw a U shape. We're going to keep that about 2 lines high. And then I'm going to just very lightly go off up here to the top, and we're going to do another two lines vertically above that. Okay, so then it goes out at a slope of 45 degrees for 2 lines. Now you can use a ruler for this if you want, and slopes back in to there. So that is the main body of our blast furnace. Now these things are huge. I mean, these things are about 10 stories. So like a human standing beside this would be about, you know, maybe that big, or much, or much smaller again. These are like 10 or 11 stories tall. They're massive. They're factories, like they're not something that sits in the corner of the room. So anyway, we're going to give this a thickness here now. So we're just going to work our way along parallel inside all the ways around, and there is the start of it. Now what I want to do next there then is we're going to put a pipe in here for blowing in hot air, because you've got to feed a furnace with air or a fire or anything. So I'm going to put dots here for our air going into the furnace. Now, so that's called the tire for hot air. So I just put an arrow there saying that that's going in the ways. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to feed the furnace. So I'm going to put a conveyor belt, so we can just draw a couple of wheels up here. Now, and we're going to put some stuff falling into the furnace. Now I'm going to use a few colors for this. So I'm going to use red. So now the red, so the charge here, the charge is what's thrown into the furnace, is iron ore for the iron. Now often the color of that is red, and that's why I'm doing this, and I'm going to show some of it falling in here now. Now the next thing I want to show in it then is coke. Now coke is not what comes out of a can. Okay, I'm going to put this in black. So coke for heat, because this kind of coke is powdered coal, so it's like coal dust. It's metal coke or metallurgical coke, but it's basically coal dust. And for heat, and carbon, because this is basically made from carbon. Okay, and the third thing then that goes into it is limestone. Now what color to use for limestone is the problem. I'm going to go with this kind of magenta. So they're all thrown in together. So limestone. That probably doesn't come out very good now, so I'll just write it in pen. Okay, and I'll just colour over it. Yeah, that probably works better here now. How the hell could I have lost my magenta pen already? So what I'll just do is I might just colour over that. So that's the limestone to float the dirt and impurities. Okay, now we're going to get into this in a second, but okay, so here's our limestone falling in. So all of these are thrown into the furnace. Now this is, the furnace burns for maybe 6 months at the time. Okay, so it's a massive operation. You don't just switch it on and off. This runs 24 hours a day for 6 months, and then, you know, they stop it and rip out all the fire bricks. So that's the next thing we're going to do here, is we're going to color N. Now the fire, now so it's made with fire bricks, or it's lined with fire bricks, which are basically red heat bricks, because the temperature inside here gets up to a couple of 1,000 degrees. Right, so there's our, no, it's called, so I might put this just up here. It's fire bricks. Slash, it's also called a refractory lining. Now, refractory lining means it keeps the heat in. It's like insulation, or bounces the heat off it. But it's basically fire bricks, but it's called a refractory lining. So really, like, you know, I'm not going to do any more with that, but that gets the idea across. Now, how do you get so you throw all the stuff in. Okay, so there's two things there now I'm going to look at. One is, how do we keep the heat in? So what I want you to do there now is just draw a little piece sticking in here. I'm going to cover that, make that part of the body of the furnace, and I'm going to put another one just up higher, close to the top, and do the same thing. Now, how they stop the heat escaping is, we want to draw then up here a triangle, but it's actually like a cone. The real shape of this is a cone, like a Chinese hat or a Vietnamese hat. And I want to put another one of those cones just below it here. So you can just put them tipping off the neck, the sort of collar here, the neck on these, and we just put these kind of lines going from the top of the cone down to the base of the cone. So, and we're going to put a chain going up here, or a steel chain, or a cable. Okay, now they're called the double bells. And what they do to keep in the heat. So it's regularly asked, how do you keep in the heat in a furnace? Because if you had the top of it open, all the heat's going to be escaping. So that's the answer, is the double bells. So how do they work? Okay, and I might just write this down at the bottom here. The double bells. So there's always one closed. So there's always one of them closed. So basically what happens is, you throw in the charge Now the charge is basically the ingredients, and when you throw in the charge, it'll all land up on top of the first bell. So if you drop it, they'd be on separate cables. Okay, so really I should probably have two cables here just to be technically correct. One going up through there. So if you open the first bell, all the stuff will fall down here. So we could even show that. There's our iron ore. And here is my coke, which is powdered coal. And here is my limestone. So when you throw it in, open the first bell and it all slides down, close the first bell. Then open the second bell and all the stuff will fall down into the furnace. So here it is falling down. There's our coke falling in and our iron ore falling in. So that's how you throw the stuff in without ever leaving all the heat rush out at the top. Now our next thing then, right, is how, so when this thing gets full up here now, you would have like massive, you know, there's like layers. This gets filled up like with layers of burning. It's like a fire basically, a huge coal fire there. But when the steel melts, it goes to the bottom. Now what color are we going to use for our steel? I might use red again. No, because I've already used red here. But and how do you get the steel out? Well, what happens then is you've got a pipe down here. A pipe down here that takes out the pig iron. So let's put a container here underneath it. Now, I'm going to put a big blob here. I'm going to put a big blob here and I'm going to put it in pink for a pig. Alright, but what used to happen, you know, hundreds of years ago when they started off this is that they would pour out, you know, big, huge, I'm not sure if blob is, but they would dig a hole on the ground there and they could pour that out and it would fill up the hole and it used to kind of look like the shape of a pig. And they would leave it flow along channels there, and you know it's said that it looked like a sow with baby bonavs all feeding off it, that there would be little channels running off to the side, and that's kind of where it came from. But basically the down here at the bottom is molten pig iron, and that can be open, it can flow out this pipe here because the liquid is at the bottom. So that's the molten pig iron. Now going back up here a bit now, we said that the iron ore has the iron, so that's why that's thrown in. The coke burns, so that's what gives off the heat. Okay, because something has to burn to drive the temperature up here to a couple of 1,000 degrees. And the limestone then, which I put here in this color here, I'm going to put this. Now the limestone floats the impurities. So this is the limestone floating on the molten pig iron. So what it does is, it's like the head in a pint of Guinness. It floats up to the top, and what happens then is there's a separate pipe put out at this height for this, and it's called slag. So that's the slag. I'll just put the colour coming out here, and that can be put into a container here. Okay, and that's slag, and that can be used afterwards for fertilizer. Okay, so the slag, okay, so there's our slag floating on top of the molten pig iron. So whenever that builds up, you just open a valve and allow that to flow out. The pig iron flows out here. So I suppose in today's modern age, I can put a container here and just say that that's collecting our pig iron. Okay, now again, it's the idea of this that's important, but that's where the name pig iron comes from. Going back, you know, because making steel is a couple of 100 years old. So now, what haven't we talked about? No, so we can draw this, and we've said there that the charge is thrown in the top, the double bells keep in the heat, and the fire bricks help to keep in the heat. You drop and close the first bell, drop and close the second bell. So I'm going to say there that the fire burns for maybe 6 months. 24 hours a day. Okay, because it's such a big operation to get this heated up and get a fire lit inside in this and get the temperature up, and you don't just stop that and start again the next day. Now, how hot does it be in here? Well, the hottest part is down at the bottom, where it can be up to almost 2000 degrees. Whereas up here at the top it might be less, say 700 degrees. But so the double bells, there's always one closed to stop heat loss. Now, the last thing to know there, then I'll just slide that up there. I hope I'm on camera. I think I am. Is pig iron has to be put into another furnace to get rid of the carbon. Well, get rid of it is probably the wrong thing to say now. Get rid of the carbon. I'm going to say from 4% down to less than one, I'll say 1.5%. then it is steel. And just say that steel is strong and tough. Okay, and another furnace. When I say another furnace, you've got two choices. Basically, it could be either an oxygen furnace or an electric arc furnace. Convert pig iron to steel. Okay, so that is basically everything that you would need to know, I think, about the blast furnace. So as I said, it's step one of a two-step process, right? So it is the dirty end of the job of making steel. So you're throwing in your dirt, your limestone to float the dirt and take it out of the iron ore, and the coke is where the carbon comes from, because we said pig iron has 4 or 5% carbon. How does the carbon get in? It's in the coke. Okay, because it's a fossil fuel, and the fire bricks keep in the heat, and you gotta blow in hot air, or the fire will go out if you don't blow in hot air. Here's our slag floating on top of the pig iron. So the slag's tapped out up high. The bottom pipe is for the pig iron, and yeah, so if you can draw that and label it and explain all that, you're in great shape for answering any blast furnace questions.